All right. Welcome to the show. This is the Frankly Fantasy Football Podcast. We are your hosts, Frankie and Johnny. Hello, Frankie. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, Johnny. Johnny boy, how are you doing, brother?
Good. Hey, is that coffee you're drinking? Do you have mayonnaise in that coffee? Did you try it yet?
I've not tried it yet. I'm a little bit nervous, too. Have you tried it yet?
I haven't, but we're going to. It's going to happen. I'm doing it.
We got to do it.
I'll tell you what. Next episode we'll do, because I think we're going to record in the morning. I'll do the coffee with mayonnaise. You do the Pepsi with Frank's Red Hot.
Done.
All right, Frank that shit up. Frank it up, baby.
Frank it up.
Frank it up. Oh, wait, I got to play that. What are you talking about? Let the sound go down here, our theme song, and then we're going to do this one. There we go. Yeah, Frank it up.
I've got to Frank it up.
Frank it up. Frank it up.
Yeah. We got to Frank that shit up. Welcome to the show, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. Please don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Frankly Fantasy Football. You're listening to us right now everywhere podcasts are found. Please check us out on YouTube as well. You can see our beautiful faces, and we do some funny shit. Frankie's got his goddamn trophy in the background. We have to look at that every goddamn week. I know. You're welcome, buddy. You're welcome. All right, we got a great show today, guys. Today is our little conversation about our starts and sits, our smash and pass, or as we always call it, hit it and quit it, baby. I want you to hit it. And yes, the comments on YouTube to answer you, my friend, it is Hit It and Quit It by Funkadelic. Great album, by the way. Maggot Brain, another great song. Love that one. Always on my playlist. All right, buddy. Who do we got now? Who are you loving this week? This is week 8. We have 0 buys. By the way, who's coming up with this fucking NFL schedule, by the way? We had 6 buys last week, and this week there's none. You couldn't do 3 and 3. You couldn't do, give me a break, man. All right. 0 buys. So congratulations. Most of you will have full strength teams. Who do we like this week, buddy? Week 8.
John, what I decided to do this week, I teased it last week, but for this week, we wanted to divide the starts and sits, smash and pass, the hit it and quit it into 2 tiers. Tier 1 being the 12 to 16 man league, the tier 2 being an 8 to 10 man league, because they're going to have different starts, right? You're going to be looking at different people. So looking at the 12 to 16 man leagues, the first guy, John, that I really am interested in this week is that of Joshua Palmer. The reason being, John, is Joshua Palmer has certainly emerged with Mike Williams going down, and it has been a guy that Justin Herbert absolutely loves to target. Guys, last week alone, against that of the Chiefs, against a very good defense, he ended up having 7 targets, caught 5 of them for 133 yards. Okay, he was absolutely their number 1 receiving option, with Keenan Allen not performing very well. Keenan Allen is the number 1 always and always will be there. But what I'm getting at is Joshua Palmer is absolutely solidifying himself as the number 2, John. So looking ahead, they're playing against Chicago. This should be an absolute ass beating. He should be able to get open often. And so I love his opportunity this week. Fire him up. I know I will be in my deep leagues.
He's clearly established himself as that number 2 guy. There's no question about it. The past 2 games after their bye, 97% of snaps, 98% of snaps. He was the wide receiver 11 last week with 16 points. He's the guy. Quentin Johnston is just not ready yet. We were hoping that, he could be the Jordan Addison, step in as the big guy goes down, but he's just not at that point. It's definitely Josh Palmer. He's got the trust of Justin Herbert and of the coaching staff, clearly. I love it this week, man. Yeah, fire him up at home against Chicago. Hell yeah.
Love that. Mm-hmm. John, the next guy I'm going for here is Jahmyr Gibbs. We're actually putting him on his start, baby. We're hitting him. The reason being, guys, is because they're playing the Las Vegas Raiders, okay? We just saw what D'Onta Foreman did to the Las Vegas Raiders, okay? Gibbs is leaps and bounds above that. In addition, their team as a whole is better than that. And so for me, this is also a dream matchup. He's playing without Monty, he's playing with a Jared Goff that's been the team has solely been relying on Goff to really be able to lead them down the field and throw for over 250 yards plus a game. So with his check down ability and knowing that this is going to be a high prime time type of game, I love Jahmyr Gibbs this week for these deeper leagues, John.
Let me tell you why I love Jahmyr Gibbs. 9 catches on 10 targets. That's what I love. Bring that back. Get him doing that. I mean, that doubles his previous games, basically. The game before that was 5 targets, 2 targets, 9 targets. That was the best game he had up until this one. But yeah, man, get those targets. That's what I want to see. Love it. Love Jahmyr Gibbs this week. All right, let me ask you a couple questions here. Jahmyr Gibbs at home versus the Vegas Raiders, or Jonathan Taylor at home versus New Orleans?
I'm actually going to go Jahmyr Gibbs against the Raiders, and it's strictly because of matchup. I mean, again, Jonathan Taylor did look good. He did look good against that of the Browns. However, the way he looked good was because he was put in good positions, right? And what I mean by that is he's getting good carries around the red zone. He's getting good carries within the 20-yard line, things of that nature. Zach Moss certainly took some of that load as well. And so it's still enough of a split to where, and against a very good defense in that the New Orleans Saints from a rushing perspective, I'm not really liking that matchup, knowing that they can potentially tee off on that of Gardner Minshew. Who knows what kind of game he's going to have. It's either going to be the one like he had against the Browns or the one in the previous week to where he threw for 3 picks, right? So we're really not sure. So for that reason, on top of everything else, with the dream matchup against Vegas Raiders, I'm leaning Gibbs this week.
Yeah, I like that too. Jonathan Taylor, it's still a 50-50 split.
Yeah.
He performed better than Zach Moss in this game, had, a big run, big play, but they were still exactly 50-50. And you've got Jahmyr Gibbs. Nobody's taken 50% of his carries away. So I like the opportunity this week without David Montgomery. Love that, man. All right, keep going, baby.
John, the next guy is going to be Darren Waller. We're absolutely hitting that on Darren Waller this week. And
my champion, baby. One of my champions are still alive.
You might be thinking, of course, why wouldn't you? Well, it hasn't necessarily been that easy. Darren Waller, week 1, 5 points. Week 2, 10. Week 3, 3. Week 4, 3. Week 5, 12. Week 6, 6. Week 7, 19. So it has not been a gimme type of start. So the reason why I like Darren Waller is because with Tyrod Taylor at the helm, assuming Danny Dimes doesn't go, he has been absolutely thriving with this guy. Even with Danny Dimes, if he does end up running, this is still the one guy that can be relied on in this offense heading into a very tough matchup against that of the New York Jets. The New York Jets have absolutely put to shame almost every quarterback they've played against this year, no question about it. So why not then have the guy that there's their go-to check down right in the middle of the field? And that is Darren Waller. Like the matchup, good play, rock it out.
They force-fed him the ball earlier in the season, and he wasn't healthy. He wasn't healthy for the first 3-4 weeks of the season. You could tell when he got healthy because they started feeding him, and he's actually performing. And we saw that last week as well. So love Darren Waller this week, of course.
John, the next guy, I'm going to be in the flames with the Lions this week, man. I expect a massive bounce back. I'm going to go with Jared Goff, right? Jared Goff is absolutely a guy that I still think people aren't 100% respecting from a fantasy perspective. Yes, he had 3 points. However, he's still the number 7 quarterback in that of fantasy football and half PPR, right? He has been dominating for most of the time, averaging about 18 to 19 points a game in half PPR at this point in time. So for me, again, I expect a massive bounce back. He is throwing the ball down the field more often than not, especially with Monty. So you could end up smashing. I would be so interested to see what his prop is on the amount of times he's throwing the ball, because if it is over 35 times, guys, that's something that I think you can smash the hell out of just from a prop bet perspective as well. Without Monty, they're checking down quite a bit. He threw the ball 55 times last week. And again, it was a great game script for it, knowing that they were down the entire time. However, I think that with the Vegas Raiders, this could be, again, one of those times where he's looking to throw the ball quite a bit.
They just got lit up by the Chicago Bears, man.
Baltimore Ravens this past week. It was the Ravens.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. That's right. Yeah.
The Ravens this week.
Yeah, I mean, this is a get right game for Detroit. They had a rough game last week. This is a game where they come out and just absolutely dominate. So I love that, man. Love it.
Yeah, definitely. And John, the last guy that I'm really looking to fire up is going to be that of Christian Kirk. The reason being is because, guys, he is quietly, sneakily the number 17 receiver in half PPR. He is averaging 11.9 points a game in half PPR, 14 points a game in full PPR. He is no question Trevor Lawrence's go-to cat. So with this type of matchup at Pittsburgh, I can tell you right now, Pittsburgh is going to try to take away that of Calvin Ridley and more than likely that of Travis Etienne. For that reason, I really love Christian Kirk out of the slot. Trevor Lawrence is finding his guy. Guys, last week alone, he had 16 fantasy points in half PPR, 6 receptions for 90 yards and a touchdown on 6 targets. He's just been a machine.
He's had at least 6 targets in every game except for week 1 this year. And that's great. Fantastic. Get him open because his targets are him in motion moving across the field.
Totally.
You know, there's definitely a lot of yak opportunity there, yards after the catch. And he scored in both of the last 2 games. That's great news. Love it, man. Christian Kirk, do not sleep on him. He should be starting until further notice in your lineups no matter what right now.
Definitely. So now, John, we're going to shift gears. That was tier 1, guys. That was more the hit it's, the starts for those in the 12-man to 16-man. For looking at the tier 2, and it's not like, oh, those are the best, tier 1. That's not what it is. We're just delineating the 2. Tier 2 being 8 to 10-man leagues. The number 1 start in my eyes, John, is Travis Etienne against that of the Pittsburgh Steelers. You have Saquon Barkley. You're trying to make a decision between him and a Travis Etienne. You're sitting Saquon Barkley and you're starting Travis Etienne. These are the types of questions we're trying to help you answer in these types of leagues. They're very difficult. The reason being, guys, Travis Etienne is on a tear like we haven't seen. 2 touchdowns in 3 straight games. Absolutely unbelievable. 3rd running back in that of half PPR and going against a tough Pittsburgh team in Pittsburgh. But the Jags have been riding his ass all the way to the success train. And I think they're going to keep going down that path, John. He's getting targets out of the backfield. He's running in between the tackles very well. And yeah, his yardage hasn't been super crazy, but they're feeding him at the goal line. And that is massive. So for me, man, fire him up and go and enjoy this game and this matchup.
I'm actually going to be at that game this week, buddy, in Pittsburgh.
Awesome.
Yeah, that'll be a good time. Good time to watch. Yeah, I don't know how you can't start Travis Etienne at this point. I'm starting Etienne. If you're in a shallow league and you've got studs that you're looking at and you got to sit somebody, like our buddy that sent us over that question this week, I'm starting Etienne over Josh Jacobs. Definitely.
Easily.
Definitely this week. You know, he's playing Detroit. Definitely will play Etienne on there. Okay, no, that sounds great. You got to play him, man. Who else you got in the shallow leagues?
I'll tell you what, this guy, people might also think, oh, this is a shoo-in. No question. Again, we're talking a shallower leagues. Amon Ra. We had somebody reach out to us and give us a perfect example. Do you start Amon Ra, Keenan Allen, Raheem Mostert, or Josh Jacobs? These are some of the questions that we are getting. And on top of that, we had another guy reach out and say, hey, I have Devante Adams, I have Cee Dee Lamb, and I had Amon Ra, which means that from a draft perspective, they went receivers all the way. And so you pepper in, if they have another running back or something along those lines that are popping off like Mostert, et cetera. They asked between those 3 receivers, you have to pick 2. That's really tough. That's really tough. And so for me, guys, that's why I'm saying it's Amon Ra St. Brown against that of the fucking Las Vegas Raiders. I'm rolling in there with Dan Campbell eating ostrich eggs and dinosaurs and all sorts of shit, right? And having sex to Josh Daniels' wife's picture and all this other crazy shit. I'm rolling in with that of Amon Ra St. Brown, baby. He's the number 9 receiver in half PPR, and I think he's going to continue this dominant play.
Get you some of that dino DNA in your body, man. I like it. All right, who else you got, bud?
Next one is going to be crazy. We're talking shallower leagues. This is absolutely something that you're probably staring at. Do I start him over Mike Evans, Devante Adams, or Garrett Wilson? Right? Throw this guy into the mix. And I'm telling you, hell yeah, you start him. It's Adam Thielen versus that of the Houston Texans. John, this is your favorite player of all time next to Brock Purdy. He's the number 7 receiver in half PPR. He's averaging, guys, 17 points a game in half PPR. He's averaging 21 points a game in full PPR. This is a dream matchup because Houston is very good. They are better than what they are advertised. And so I think this could actually end up being a shootout between the two rookie quarterbacks, pick number 1 overall and pick number 2 overall. They both are competitive. They both want to show why they were chosen. This is going to be more of a rivalry type of vibe, especially with Bama versus OSU. Right. All the headlines are going to be there. I love Adam Thielen. I think he's going to be the safety net for Bryce Young. Could absolutely see another mega game from him.
If it wasn't for Adam Thielen, the median average age of that team would be drastically lower.
Well, yeah, he's like, what, 33, 30, 31, something like that?
Might as well be 56, man. I don't, at that time. Now, can you imagine if Brock Purdy and Adam Thielen were on the same team? Now, what do you think that would look like? Neither of them would have the season they're having, right?
Yeah, I don't know. It would be interesting. It would be interesting.
I think they need to check him for PEDs, man.
Something.
That'll be the news next week. You're going to hear, Adam Thielen suspended for PEDs, and be like, yeah, that checks out.
I knew it.
Makes total sense. Yeah.
We called it.
Other players are going to be like, oh, shit, yeah, I should probably try that stuff, man. Oh, by the way, did you see Jonathan Taylor scores his first touchdown of the season and then gets drug tested?
Jim Irsay probably called him up and said, hey, can you please drug test this guy? Just hurry up and do it. Just honestly, he's an asshole. He's actually doing drugs actively. Hurry up and test him.
He's pissed that he just paid him, so he wants to fuck with him. Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
Jim Irsay would do something like that too. He would.
John.
All right. I'm on board with you with Adam Thielen. I hope to God one day we can disagree about this, but I'm back on board.
Nice. The last guy for the 8 to 10 man leagues that I'm saying fire up is Breece Hall. Breece Hall is one of those guys that you're looking at. You might have a Josh Jacobs on your squad, right? You might have the James Cooks. You might have a Saquon Barkley. You might have an Austin Eckler, and you're still trying to figure out what the hell am I supposed to do? Right now, man, I'm telling you not to sit any of those guys depending on how your team is constructed. I'm telling you to start Breece Hall. Breece Hall has been absolutely dominant. In the last 2 games, he has scored 29.9 points in half PPR, 17 points in PPR. And by the way, the last team that they played against actually has the second best run defense in the NFL, and he torched them in the Philadelphia Eagles. He ended up running 54 yards, he ended up running for 39 yards, caught the ball for 54 yards, had 5 receptions, and also had a rushing touchdown. He was excellent. And so now you're telling me that he is playing at home against that of the New York Giants. Absolutely dream matchup. This is where everyone should be salivating. Everyone should be celebrating, because I'm telling you, Zach Wilson's guy is going to be Breece Hall. That is how they're going to win this game on top of that defense. So I love him this week. Fire him up.
There's no argument whatsoever. Breece Hall, one of my favorite players in the NFL. He was last year before he got hurt. This year, anytime he touches the ball, I literally get excited. I go, let's go, baby. He's so good. I'm holding on to him. I had an offer. I'd like to ask you about this, Frankie, actually. I had an offer today from somebody in our league. I won't tell you who, but you'll know who as soon as you hear the player. Our 14-team league, keeper league, double flex. The offer was Justin Jefferson for Breece Hall.
Wow.
I'm the high point man. I can afford to wait on JJ. And I tried to give him James Cook and somebody else and a receiver for JJ, but he wanted Breece Hall, and I can't do it. Even though, yes, JJ could come back, help me win the league, I think Breece Hall's a league winner as well, man. That's why I drafted him.
That is so tough. Because here's why I say that's tough. If the Vikings would have lost yesterday, I would have said no. Because they might just shut him down.
Yeah.
Vikings won. Not really sure what's going to happen in that division. If they end up rising to the top a bit, could be interesting. But we've seen the running back landscape, and it is gross, and it is tough, and people are getting hurt all over the place. Let me ask you a question. Is this the same league you have Jerome Ford?
No, it is not. No, it is not.
Okay.
No.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, that's one, John, that in my opinion, man, I think it's tit for tat. I think it's what your gut is telling you. Because are you willing to wait on JJ and let go of a guy who had 30 points and 18 and is walking into a really favorable schedule coming up? Right? Or do you want to get the best receiver in the NFL with a huge asterisk next to him if he even comes back?
The other thing that makes me waver and question is, are they going to keep Kirk Cousins? Because they could still make some trades here before the deadline in the next 2 weeks. So I'm a little nervous about it. I'd hate to trade for JJ and give away Breece Hall, and then you got some shit stain, like, I don't know. Or maybe it could be a star like Tyson Bagent or something.
Bobo Badgett over here.
Yeah. All right, man. That sounds great. Who are you sitting this week?
So, guys, sitting across the board, we're not going to break these out in tiers. These are just guys, do not start them, right? First and foremost, it's the Los Angeles Rams running backs. I'm lumping them all in together because the reason being, number one, they're at Dallas, who's coming off a bye week, who is rested and healthy. Okay. Number two, nobody knows which running back is going to pop off. And last week was not a good enough showing for a defense that they were playing in comparison to what they're going to be walking into at Dallas. So for me, I'm not willing to walk out that of Darrell Henderson or Royce Freeman and feel super good about my decision, knowing that the defense that they're playing against with Micah Parsons and they have something to prove. So for me, I'm sitting the Los Angeles Rams running backs this week.
You don't know what's going to happen. You've got a 50-50 backfield. Two guys basically brought up, signed a week ago, 2 weeks ago to bring into play. Yeah. Yes. Darrell Henderson had a good game last week. This is a Dallas defense. It's a different scenario. Had he been with the team and been an all-star all season long, I'd be hesitant starting him this week anyway, let alone the situation that's at hand. So I'm with you, brother.
John, the next sit, guys, sit him down, pass on him, and quit. Let me tell you, is Javonte Williams. Really tough to say that. We're big Javonte Williams people. I like him. Yeah. You like him, right? But it's just, this isn't the matchup for it. It's Kansas City. Chris Jones ate his ass last year, or 2 weeks ago, should I say. They just played him 2 weeks ago, that of the Kansas City Chiefs. And so, guys, what he did, he only had 10 rushes for 52 yards. And that is strictly because of game script. Right? If this gets out of hand again, there goes Javonte Williams' game script. And on top of it, the defensive front there is good. So for me, right, looking at what Javonte Williams did, he had 7 points against that of Kansas City when they played against him last time. This past week, he had 11. He's averaging 7 points in half PPR. For me, not willing to ride him this week at Kansas City. You can sit him.
Javonte Williams has been tough. He's just such a talented guy. And it could be a situation where he just never really gets back to who he was after these injuries that he's had. Mm-hmm. That's a real possibility. He does still seem to have some juice, though, but he's got a rough schedule, man. This whole team is just, nobody predicted how bad this team was going to be this year or how up and down they're going to be. But their schedule's brutal, man. Kansas City, then a bye, then Buffalo. They got Minnesota in week 11. That's a week I'd feel really good about playing Javonte Williams. Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to look through and see. I've got him. When would I play him? There's not a lot of games on here, man, that I'd play him. Cleveland, no thank you. Houston and the Chargers, Detroit, there's a stretch of games there in your playoffs, end of the season. I think he'll be able to help you at that time. So hold him. You're not going to be able to get anything for him, but you can't start him in this matchup. Absolutely not. Hold him to maybe help you with injuries in your playoff weeks coming up. Yeah.
John, so what's interesting, this next sit here, was actually a start last week, and he did enough in that of PPR to be, and he scored, right? It's Brian Robinson, so he did enough to where it was a decent start, and it was a dream matchup. This week he's an absolute quit, absolute sit. They're playing against that of Philly. Philly is the number 2 rush defense in the NFL. What Philly just did to Raheem Mostert, nobody's been able to slow down the number 2 running back in that of fantasy football this year. They were able to the tune of they held him to 45 yards on 9 carries, and he caught one of his 3 targets for 6 yards. That's what Raheem Mostert did against Philly. Okay, what do you think is going to happen with Brian Robinson? It's going to be very, very much so of the same. So for me, I'm not willing to ride into the flames with Brian Robinson. I had him. I started him last week, did enough to get the job done, double digits in full PPR. However, for me this week, sitting his ass, don't want no part of it.
No, and there's multiple reasons for that. You've got a great defense in Philadelphia, and they've done really good things. Look what they did to the Miami offense. You're exactly right.
Yep.
The other reason is game script. This Philadelphia team is going to score. They're going to methodically move the ball down the field. They're going to have a lead. Now, it's the NFL. I get it. We've seen crazy shit. I'm looking at all the things and trying to put together patterns, is what I'm saying. Based on what we can see, based on what should happen, Brian Robinson can't be in your lineup, man.
No.
He can't. No, I'm with you.
John, the last quit is one that's going to be interesting, and people might not like to hear it. It's going to be Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon against that of the San Francisco 49ers. This is tough. They're coming off of a bye week. You know they're rested. You know they're healthy. You know they've been prepped and ready for this San Francisco team. However, San Francisco has dropped 2. They've been traveling all over the damn place. They went to Cleveland, then they go to Minnesota. Now they're back home. You can't tell me that San Francisco isn't going to be pissed off as all hell, number 1. Number 2, they are what Joe Mixon has shown over the last 3 weeks. Week 4 against that of Tennessee, he ran the ball for 67 yards and had 9 receiving yards on 1 reception. 8 points. Week 5 against the Arizona Cardinals, which should have been a dream matchup. He had 81 yards rushing on 25 carries. He had 13 receiving yards on 4 receptions. What does that equate to in half PPR? 11 points. He then had another good matchup against that of the Seattle Seahawks. He only ran the ball 12 times for 38 yards and caught 3 passes for 24. Not a lot of production. Now you're walking into a pissed off San Francisco defense at their house with a different time change. Don't like this matchup whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm with you. It sounds crazy to bench Joe Mixon, but if you look at his production and what he's done and what this offense is currently doing, they're not running their offense through Joe Mixon. He's just kind of an ancillary piece that's not really focused on that much. You're exactly right, man. But yeah, you're right. The things that have happened to the 49ers in these past 2 weeks, it's not going to continue, man.
No.
It's just not. Kyle Shanahan's too smart. They're going to get this shit together. And I think the Bengals are going to have to come out slinging. You're not going to be running the ball against the San Francisco team right now. They're pissed. No. Yeah. All right. Sounds good, man. Hey, we got a question here that came in. Wanted to talk to you about. This is a legitimate start and sit from Jackson Hickey. Shout out to Jackson in one of our leagues, in our Superflex league. Okay. All right. So on his team, I want to just make sure I've got the right 2 guys here. It's the receiver question. Start, sit. We've got. I'm sorry. I'm getting to it right now. All right, he's already got Devante Adams. Let me see here. I'm sorry.
So he has Devante Adams.
He's got Devante Adams and Mike Evans as his receiver. Okay.
Great.
Now, his question for the start sit for his flex. This is a full PPR. Garrett Wilson at the Giants, Michael Pittman at home against New Orleans, or Nico Collins at Carolina. Garrett Wilson, Michael Pittman, Nico Collins. Start one of those guys.
So
full PPR.
Full PPR. This is tough. This is one of those ones. This is as tough for me as what it was for sit a Raheem Mostert, a Josh Jacobs, a Keenan Allen, or Amon Ra. Tell us who to sit. Right. This is very similar to that because these are all flexes. and this could make and break the week. So for me, man, I'm going to actually ride with Wilson here. The reason being is because Garrett Wilson coming off of I believe it was a 12 target game, right? He's already starting to build momentum. Bye week this past week, they're able to come out of this in a little bit different fashion, and they have a dream matchup against that of the Giants. For all of those reasons, I think I would lean Garrett Wilson. Now, this is totally a gut feeling type of thing, and this is what we were telling the other guys, because these are the types of decisions that I'm not going to sit here and bang my chest on, because I'm not 100% confident either. Because my second choice, John, would actually be Nico Collins, which maybe people wouldn't agree with based on Michael Pittman, what he just did for the Browns. But if you were watching the Browns game, Michael Pittman would have a very different stat line had there not been 2 missed tackles on that 1 touchdown that he had. Yeah. So Michael Pittman against that of Marshawn Lattimore in the New Orleans Saints, I do not like that matchup. That's a really gross matchup for me. So that's why I like Josh Downs when we were talking about that last episode, that he might be a guy that's really nice because the defense is going to be focused on Michael Pittman Jr. in some of the rushing game versus that of Josh Downs. Nico Collins playing that, and I apologize, John, you said they were playing the Carolina Panthers, correct?
At Carolina, yeah.
Like that matchup a little bit more. However, Carolina's defense against a rookie quarterback, they could cause some problems. And so for me, I do like him, stack ranking him this week a little bit higher. And if Tank Dell is back, I think that could even help actually Nico Collins, because it will stop people from just focusing on Nico Collins 100% of the time, and they'll have to respect the speed of Tank Dell. So if Tank Dell comes back, I think the decision becomes even more difficult. But for me right now, as we sit, I am actually leaning towards that of Garrett Wilson. And it's strictly because of the trajectory that we've seen with that of Zach Wilson to Garrett Wilson, 12 targets last time with 9 catches, and I believe it was over 90 yards. I think that with that matchup that they have against that of the Giants, I see that being a more favorable matchup. But again, go with your gut, Jackson. Great question.
Yeah, it's really difficult, and he's frustrated. He'll send me messages and, man, I got to make a trade because I start the wrong guy every week. He started, left Nico Collins on his bench, last week with 30 points. And, Michael Pittman will do that to you too sometimes. So the advice I have, if you've got 5, you got 2 studs and then you've got 3 options at flex. I've got that in some of my leagues. It is very frustrating. It's difficult because chances are you're going to pick the wrong guy.
Yeah.
I mean, we study this shit and we still do the same thing. It's the NFL. That's how that works. My advice, if you've got 5 startable receivers like that, create a 2-for-1 trade. Take 2 pieces to a guy who's getting killed in buys or injuries. Take 2 of them. Trade Garrett Wilson and Michael Pittman Jr., or, take one of these guys that has a blow up week. They're all going to take turns. Take the guy who just blew up. Maybe he's going to have a little more value. Trade 2 of them and upgrade somewhere. This is a super flex. Maybe upgrade at quarterback. Maybe upgrade your tight end. Maybe you can get a Darren Waller or a Mark Andrews for that. Upgrade running back situation. You can always use running backs.
Always.
But if you've got this situation, you could look at doing that. It is hard because of all the injuries, though. I mean, my advice up until now was to hold and have options, but the options are starting to get a little annoying, apparently.
Totally.
So.
And guys, we're halfway through the year, right? Now we're week 8 here. There's going to be most leagues have a trade deadline. It's not for another few weeks here, but now you need to start shifting to where, okay, I have depth. Now I need to start putting my team together to where I need to have the best possible starters humanly possible as much as I can, right? Because now, to your point, John, I'm absolutely doing a 2-for-1 or a 3-for-1 or a 3-for-2 or whatever the hell it is. And maybe you can even upgrade that at receiver. Maybe a guy that had JJ is sitting there and they're still in the running. Maybe they're 4-3 and they could use a true receiver 2 and another true receiver 2, and you can then maybe get, to your point, a top tier tight end or a running back, or even trade for JJ, and then now you don't have that option. So if JJ comes back, now you're Devante Adams, now you're JJ, and now you're Mike Evans with Garrett Wilson in the wings or Nico Collins in the wings. To me, that makes more sense compared to that of the Breece Hall for that of the JJ 1-for-1, because you're having a little bit more risk on your side from a double flex 14-man league. So that is what I would be doing, Jackson. Right now is the time to where you got to flip the switch a tad and start now thinking, what trades can I package together to get the absolute top tier team that I can ride right now into the playoffs?
Yeah. All right. That's great advice, man. I love it. I love it. All right. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. I hope these starts and sits and these smashes and passes, I hope they helped you out here this week. Tune in next week. We're going to review week 8, do the ice and fire. We'll tell you all the injury news, which I hope there's not a lot, but there has been, man. I know. And we'll get into the Thursday night football preview. Frankie, what else do you have to say to everyone coming into their games, getting ready to go into battle here, man?
Good luck, guys. Have a hell of a week. Pick the right people. Make some trades. Get excited. We're halfway mark here. Start strategizing, thinking ahead. Do not stay stagnant. Constantly be checking out, right, the teams to where you can make a trade, better your team, or if you want a little bit more depth, get a little bit more depth. But do not stay stagnant. Things are going to start changing hot and heavy halfway through. Listen to us and feed off it, baby. Enjoy this week.
You're either moving or you're dying, right? All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Don't forget, follow us on Instagram at Frankly Fantasy Football and on YouTube as well. May the fantasy gods smile upon you.